Hey, welcome back to World Entertainment and our review for Quantum Leap Episode 2. I'll be honest with you, I'm very, very late on this review, but I don't know if I'm going to continue reviewing this show. The only way I can put it to you is if you see an Episode 3 review, I'll have done an Episode 3 review. If you don't, I won't. So when I spoke about the first episode, we said how it had potential, but it was staying too much in modern day as opposed to the leap. Well, this one goes even further with that. This spends almost the entirety of the episode in present day. So the end of the last episode, he jumped and ended up Ben is the character's name. He jumped into an astronaut. So the shuttle launches. The Asian man managed to jump into the body of an Asian man. Isn't that handy? So he's a Japanese astronaut named David who died on the mission. They don't know how he died on the mission. Apparently it was all classified. The mission was to bring up the first part of the International Space Station, which is funny because they set this thing in 98, and if you do some research and have a look, there was no shuttle launch in 98. And that's his whole arc, is being on the shuttle. And we spend very little time there on that episode. We spent the majority of the time in the present day, where his fiancée turned her house upside down searching for clues and found a thumb drive in a book, which he gives to the non-binary actor. I don't know the names of the characters except for Ernie Hudson, because he's called Magic, and our main character Ben, who isn't terrible, by the way. He's actually pretty decent, but Ernie Hudson, like, steals the show. It turns out that they don't want the fiancé to start trying to help Ben remember things, because now they are starting to think, is he a villain? Basically, did he secretly jump to enact some devastating plan, and they don't want him to remember, just in case. So she doesn't tell them about the thumb drive, which is password encoded, that the non-binary actor Mason is his real name. So yes, he is a man. Non-binary, yeah, whatever. He can't crack the code, but he has other people trying to help. So those two aren't telling the other two, Magic and the Asian security woman, about the thumb drive and the passcode. They're not telling them two about Al's daughter, who they know was working with Ben for some reason. They find where she was staying. They find a little basement under her couch. There's a door under her couch where there's just boards and everything set up to find something, and she knows they're there and contacts them and burns the house down, basically sets off a thing that burns the house down. But they manage to get one of the hard drives, and they eventually come together and unlock the thumb drive, and it's meant to be in a 3D form, which they expand on. and you find there's a specific point in time that is targeted, but they don't know what that time is, what that specific time is. So if it's Al's daughter, I'm going to assume that it's meant to be where Sam is. Sam Beckett from the original show. This is all this show is. This is the problem. It's just mystery box after mystery box after mystery box after mystery box. And yet it's all so very kind of obvious. And you've noticed I haven't really spoken about Ben because we really aren't there with him. When we eventually go back to him earlier, the shuttle gets damaged. So they think this is possibly where he dies. The payload gets loose and damages the shuttle and causes it to spin out. Here's the funny thing about this scene. They say the payload doors are jammed. And then, as they're trying to open them, and yes, I believe it is open them, the payload comes loose and hits the doors, which sends it off into a spiral. Yet, when we see the outside of the shuttle as it's spinning out of control, the payload doors are wide open. If they're jammed, how are they open? And if they're open, how did the payload hit the fucking things? It's so bizarre. So he survives that. He wonders why he hasn't jumped yet. They are obviously, well, we don't know how he dies. Then he has to go out on a spacewalk to dump the payload. They have to dump the payload to try and get the doors closed. He does that. While he does that, debris is coming towards them. And the fiance is obviously there's the hologram says, oh, the debris is early. So he has to duck. So he ducks, the debris misses him, but it hits the wing of the shuttle and breaks some of the tiles, the heat tiles. So he's like, well, I didn't get hit, so I guess I'm ready to jump. She says, no, because it missed you, it hit and damaged the shuttle. So Ziggy's now saying there's a 100% chance they're all going to die. And she explains to him about which is the shuttle that was coming back and burnt up in the atmosphere. She explains that one to him. He's on the Atlantis, I believe it is. Which is the one that challenges the Columbia. Columbia is the one that disintegrated on its way back down. She tells him about that, so their captain who got knocked out is now back awake and he wants to just go home, like take the shuttle in. The second in command, who was in command when he was out, who was a woman, by the way, no one on this ship is white bar the woman. She's like saying, no, we can't because the tiles are damaged. He's like, blah blah blah. And they convince them to contact Mir, the Russian Mir space station. Anyone who doesn't remember Mir was a Russian space station, the first space station that was up in space, obviously. That was a piece of junk. Parts of it used to actually break off and fall into the atmosphere all the time. And they eventually decommissioned it and crashes into the ocean. Google it. The thing was a disaster for the Russians as well. Which is why they partnered with NASA and you have the International Space Station. But they try and signal them and they won't answer. And then Ben realizes, oh, hang on, what's the time? They're asleep because they are on Russian time. They, NASA stays on American time, the Russians are on Russian, so they're asleep. I kid you not, Ben jumps off the shuttle, floats all the way across to Mir, bounces off it until the very last second and grabs hold of the bar, which happens to be right beside the door. You can't make this up. He knocks on the door. And he literally knocks. Hello, anyone there? To the surprise of this Russian who just looks out the door and he's like, alright, yeah. And he's like, yeah, we need help. And the Russians like, and they're like, yay, you survived. And he jumps into a boxer because he's there and just gets punched in the face. And here's the guy saying, put your hands up, and looks over, and it's obviously his coach in training telling him, keep your hands up. And he looks at the other guy and tries to plead on him and gets knocked out. And that is episode 2 of Quantum Leap. This episode is a lot worse than the first episode. The potential that it possibly had with the first episode, yeah, that's gone. Good looking, thanks. Yeah, as I said, if you see a review for a third episode, I'll have done a review. Otherwise, I don't know. Yeah, we'll have to see. Anyway, I'll leave it there for this one. Cheers. Catch you in the next.